conversation is going round. People talking about the colors come to town. Fresh as a summer breeze, she'll take you by surprise.
Good morning and welcome to another fabulous episode of Freshwaves here on Whistle FM, where it's happening apparently in Stouffville, but it is actually where it's happening in Stouffville. This studio has been alive with activity this morning. It's so nice to see. People got here at 6:45. They've been live on the air since 7 o'clock this morning. It's now just after 10 a.m. and we're still live, so this is a happening place. Good morning, Jason Rumble.
Good morning, Bren Masson. How you doing?
I'm great, thanks. Thank you for all of your technical help behind the board today.
My pleasure as always.
I've got some new wiring here at my microphone, which means that the crackle, snap, and pop will go back into the cereal bowl, and they won't be on the air.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah.
Does it sound good?
Yeah, you're sounding
terrific.
Good.
Then we're well on our way. Big thank you going out to Reese's Market and Bakery this morning for the fabulous muffins that are in the studio. I'm a particular fan of oatmeal cranberry, and they do such a wonderful job. And Morning Glory, but that's Tuesdays. They're one of my favorites. Every day they change up the list, so it's not like going to one of the big box stores where every day you get the same thing. Going to Reese's is like a new opportunity every time you walk in the door. Something special, something fantastic, and I'm really happy that they are at 5758 Main Street in Stouffville, and that's right beside Barthow Jewelers. So we have got a fabulous show lined up today. We have a man named Bill Cotric, who is, CEO, the head guy, the main machine over at Changing Dimensions. And Bill has been an executive coach for years, and he has done all kinds of amazing things. And I have to start by saying most of my guests I have met either by referrals, somebody saying, oh, you should interview so-and-so, they're super great. Or, I don't know, I've known them from being in town, or they're friends of mine, and I've met them through all kinds of networking. Bill, I met on vacation in St. Lucia.
Wow.
And he lives in Richmond Hill. Go figure. But we were sitting at a cafe one morning having a coffee at this beautiful little place where you overlook the pool and the ocean. It's, 7:15 in the morning. There's very few people awake. It was just a lovely time of the day. And into this little cafe walked an extremely loud, very rude man who insulted the women that were there, said that the workers weren't working fast enough or hard enough, but that's what you expect in the Caribbean. He was belligerent. His wife was following him like a little chipmunk going after a peanut. It was awful. And that, of course, inspired a conversation with the people that were sitting next to us in the cafe, who happened to be Bill and his wife. And now he's on my show. Isn't that fun? I love stories like that.
Small world.
It is a small world, and it's a world that comes together through connection. And that has always amazed me. Like-minded people in like-minded situations who, we were the ones who were saying, oh my goodness, this is awful. And then thinking at the same time, I wonder what's eating him, because a person isn't normally like that unless they themselves are the ones that are having a really rough time in some way, shape, or form. And it was also awful to watch his wife. But anyway, that aside, I met you on a beautiful sunny day in the Caribbean.
Always beautiful in St. Lucia.
Isn't it? It is just gorgeous. So welcome to Fresh Waves. It's wonderful to have you here.
Thanks, Brent. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
So you are an executive coach. Let's start with, what the heck is that?
Sure. So coaching, life coaching is something that's been around now for, decades.
Yeah.
It basically is a form of life coaching, but more specifically geared towards executives. So whether you're an executive or a mom or any walk of life, there really is an issue on work-life balance nowadays, right?
Okay.
So especially in a corporate environment where the demands are getting more and more all the time, having a coach to be able to actually take some time out and sit down and figure out a game plan for yourself on what is most effective. There's also a component of it in that organizations expect that a executive coach is going to be providing some development in the leadership of the executives that you're coaching.
Okay.
Right. So, we train ourselves on leadership and understanding that having a background in organizations is helpful, but you don't have to. Sometimes people that don't have any clue about what corporations are about actually are the most effective coaches because they haven't bought into all of the, understanding of what goes on there.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so how did you get into this? I mean, do you all of a sudden just wake up one morning and say, I'm going to be an executive coach?
Well, it was sort of strange how it happened in that I had 3 people within a 6-month period say to me, oh, you should be a life coach. You'd be so great at it. And I didn't know anything about it. This was maybe about 17 years ago.
Oh, because it was pretty new 17 years ago. Now it's kind of, it's talked about a lot, even though I believe there's a lot of people who don't understand it. But
Yes.
It was really new back then.
Yeah, I hadn't a clue. And, these people were talking about it like it was some sort of profession and that there was training. And then when my wife's cousin said that to me, I said, Lita, what do you know about this? And she said, oh, my good friend is a coach, and she teaches at the Adler School. And, I've been coached a little bit. It's a great process. And I said, okay, I've got to find out what this is about. Where have I been? Mm. And so I called this Dorothy Greenaway, who was Lita's good friend, and she told me, here's the ICF, the International Coach Federation website. Have a look at that. I'll give you an hour of my time. And so I went and I met with her, and she said, I think it's something you'll be interested in. And it was fascinating. It was fascinating that you would sit down with someone to talk about your life and work, and that this person would not be telling you what to do, but just listening, and you'd be asking them questions that gain greater awareness about what's important to you. And so that to me was absolutely fascinating. And I thought, how does this work? Because everything I knew up to that point was you train yourself to become an expert, and you walk into the room as the expert, versus a coach walks into the room holding their client as the expert in their work and their life. So it's a very different approach. Very, very different.
That's a really great way of putting it, because it really makes it a lot clearer. Coaches, by and large, are not the ex-athlete looking for something to do.
Exactly.
The coach is a whole different person. And I think the best coaches I've ever come across, be it hockey, baseball, whatever, are the people who are not the all-star player, but the people who enjoy the sport, struggle with the sport, have a passion for the sport.
Yes.
And for the act of making a team, so to speak.
Well, and I think also with sports coaches, what they also, the better ones, understand that it's a bit of a mind game. It's how you're showing up and how you're thinking about yourself and your abilities and how much that plays in the success, right?
Yeah. Which
Which is more along the lines of what we do as professional coaches. Right?
Well, I have to tell you a little story, because that's just what I do. We were at a midget AAA hockey game, and we had, it was the All-Ontario Finals being held in Markham. There were 5 or 6 teams that were in the playoffs, and one of them, they were there by accident. A team had difficulties and wasn't able to come. They were the next one in line. So the coach admitted that they weren't even supposed to be there. They were there by default. And he had studied coaching. He was a rather young guy, studied coaching, but mostly in soccer. This team needed a coach. Someone recommended him. He got the job, but his background was in soccer. And he had studied Australian soccer teams. We're getting to the end of the 3rd period. The game is really intense. It's tied. Nobody wants to go into overtime in a tournament like that. You want to win. So he calls a timeout. I happened to be there waiting because I had to be interviewing one of the players as soon as they finished the game. And he calls a timeout. He's got his little clipboard. He's writing all his stuff down, and he turns the whiteboard to the team. And I'm expecting to see the ice like they always have with the center ice. They got the players, and they show you where the players are going to be and what you're going to do. All this complicated play technique.
Right.
When he turned his clipboard around, it said in big block letters, "Believe." They did a team cheer, and that team went back on the ice. They ended up going into overtime. They didn't win. But let me tell you, you have never seen a group of guys come together with such vigor at the end of that game. And it was so simple. Believe.
Believe, yes.
Wow. I was completely blown away. It messed up my interview and everything because I was just mesmerized by what this man had done. And I've never forgotten that.
Yes.
It was a wonderful, wonderful teaching opportunity for the boys, for me, for anyone who saw it.
Yeah. And that is really the starting point of professional coaching, in that if you don't believe in your ability to have the kind of life that you want or do what you want to accomplish, and that's really about having trust in yourself, right? And if you don't have that, then there's a good chance it's not going to manifest for you. But that's the starting point, is really what's going on with you. Do you trust yourself? You know, and then that little, inner critic that's always niggling away at us saying, oh, you're not good enough, or
yes,
you
I
can't
call it
do
the poop pigeon that sits on your shoulder and poops on everything that you do.
Exactly.
The poop pigeon is a rotten thing.
Yes.
It really must be conquered.
Well, and it holds people back from actualizing who they can really be in the world and who they want to be in the world. It holds them back. And most limitations are the limitations we put on ourselves.
Exactly. Well, we're going to talk about that some more when we get back from our first break. Jay, take it away. Pay some bills here at the station. You're listening to Fresh Waves. We have Bill Cotric in the studio this morning. I'm your host, Bren Masson. We'll be back right after this.
Hi folks, Kim Mitchell here. However you choose to get around, your ATV, your snowmobile, your boat, car, if you have a motorcycle, all these things take 100% of your attention and skill to operate safely. Alcohol impairs that, and bad things can happen. So, be smart, okay? You know what I'm going to say next.
This message brought to you from the Safe and Sober Awareness Committee.
Hey everyone, this is Lil J. Join me every Saturday night at 11 p.m. Eastern for The Block Party, a 2-hour journey of the best in the Canadian underground dance music scene, featuring tracks and DJ mixes from Canada's emerging artists, from the disco hits of the 70s to the latest dance floor fillers. No lineups or cover charges, it's your weekly free access to the beats that are packing dance floors in Canada and around the world. The Block Party, Saturday nights at 11 p.m. Eastern, right here on 102.9 Whistle FM and online at whistleradio.ca.
We're talking with Bill Cotric of Changing Dimensions this morning. I'm your host, Bren Masson. Okay, we had just touched on the issue of trust. And that's a really interesting thing to talk about, because some of the biggest business executives in the world have this amazing trust in themselves. When you think of the Conrad Blacks and I don't know, there's so many of them. But there's others that spend their whole life doing really great things and never really knowing if that great thing is going to come out. And I think that's a really stressful place to be for the majority of your life, if you're always in that place of not knowing for sure.
Yeah, I think it depends on the person. I think that there are some people that live their life in a space where they don't want to know, that they're much more in the moment with the adventure of life and where it's going to take them. And then there's others that want everything planned out right through to their retirement and the old age home and everything else. And so I think it really depends on, what you gravitate to and what's important to you.
Well, as a coach, how do you determine what kind of a person you're dealing with? So you walk into a corporation, they've obviously called you. They wouldn't call you if they didn't have something in mind, a
Yes.
reason, a purpose, a problem.
Well, and sometimes it's not them so much that's calling you; it's the organization that's decided that
This person needs help.
well, it's not so much
or
that
a
they
group.
need help, but that they could benefit from having
Right.
a coach. When I first started, it was interesting because executives would go, "Well, what's the matter? Why do I need a coach?" It was seen more like there was something wrong. And it's like we got to get a coach in here. Now, what's happening is a lot of leaders are going to their HR or their superiors and saying, "Why don't I have a coach? Aren't I valued in this organization?"
It's kind of like a family with kids, right?
Right. And it's because I think people understand now that coaching is not a process for people that are, broken or needing fixing, but it's a way in which you can enhance your life, right? And it's about really gaining awareness about what's really going on with you. Right. I mean, how many of us are on automatic pilot every single day? From the minute we wake up, it's just like we're just going through the same sort of sequences, rushing like crazy, and not really thinking about what it is that we're doing. We're creatures of habit. We do the same thing over and over and expect to have different results. Well, it doesn't work that way, right?
Isn't that the definition of insanity?
Well, certainly with the number of people who are on antidepressant drugs now in North America, we're certainly going that route, right?
Yeah.
So the more that we're aware of what's really important to us, and this is where coaching is a highly specialized conversation. It's not just a conversation like we're having. Mm-hmm. It's specialized to really bring out the deepest amount of awareness about who you are and, what's important to you and your personal values, not the values of your organization, your family, the society, but what are your values? What's important to you? Because I really do believe as an authenticity advocate that it's when we live into our values that we're actually able to actualize who we are.
Right.
At the deepest level. And that's what brings us the greatest amount of fulfillment.
Well, there's a big how things get trendy. So there's this big trend now to actualize your passion, find your passion,
Yes.
live your passion. Half the world doesn't know what their passion is. So you're saying that it's maybe not your passion so much as your values.
Well, there are some people who have tremendous passion. They know exactly. I bet you're one of those people that, you know what you're passionate about.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm sure you're living into that passion on a daily basis. But there are people, absolutely, that don't know what their passion is, right? And it's because they haven't really given themselves the liberty to take the time to understand what that is. And a lot of times it's because they've been in environments that have imposed all kinds of thinking, ways of being that is so far removed from who they authentically are, but they continue to operate that way. Some wealthy people that I've coached, I've noticed that they feel very restricted within the parameters of, the society that they or can live in, and that there's certain expectations. Right? It's the gilded cage, right?
Right.
And so as much as maybe they would love to experience this or that, it's just not appropriate with the people that they're associating with. Or at least they think it isn't.
Right.
And they don't particularly want to be leaders in doing something different.
It's a scary place to be a leader in doing something different. It really puts you in a position of vulnerability.
I don't think it's a scary place for you, though.
It can be.
Can it?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right.
Sure, it can be. Because when you're different, you stick your head out, someone's going to make an effort to chop it off.
But it's those people like Gandhi and Martin Luther King, those people that wanted to be different, that really made a huge impact in how we see ourselves as people and how we can be in this world.
They were the change that they wanted to see in the world.
Yes.
But again, that's not the easiest place to be. The easiest place to be is on that hamster wheel.
Well, I would say that once you have embraced the oddity of who you are...
Can I quote you on that?
Yes,
that's
actually,
wonderful.
that is the title of my first workshop in my authenticity series of workshops that I do, which we can talk about later. I call it that because we never see our unique, authentic selves as this wonderful entity. We're very critical of who we are. And once we realize that that's what we have to offer the world, it's that difference that's so special about us. And that when we harness that and make some meaning from it and put that out in the world, then we are leaders.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. And so that's a lot of work that I do with executives too, is that so many executives think that they have to be a certain way. They have this image of what a leader is, what an executive is. They bought into all of that, right?
Right.
And, I can share from my own life. I certainly did all that as well, right?
So before you were a coach, you were actually another person.
Yeah, I was another person. I was in advertising, marketing, and publishing for almost 20 years. And, I certainly bought into that I needed to be a certain way and I needed to be the expert. And there wasn't a lot of collaboration with the teams of people that reported to me. I'd work it all out and, delegate. And we now know that leadership today, a big part of it, especially with millennials, is about empowering your people. Because if they don't feel empowered in the work that they're doing, they're not going to be very motivated. Their engagement with the work that they're doing and with the people they're working with is going to be minimized.
Yeah, they're a whole different breed, aren't they? I've heard some crazy things about millennials in the workplace lately. Like their mothers going in and decorating their offices for them. Oh my goodness, I can't even imagine. It just sends shivers down my spine. And I said to my 4 kids, don't ever expect me to do that. It's just not in my realm. And make your own food and decorate your own office space, please.
Well, I do hear a lot about millennials in the workplace from executives, but I personally feel that they have it right as far as the work-life balance thing goes.
Yes, I think it's got a nice shift. And I think Google, you hate to give the big guys their more accolades than they already have, but it's companies like Google who are letting the world see their inner workings and see that they're doing things differently and that this is working. It's a business model that's working.
Yes.
It's giving people a break during the day. It's giving you some creativity during your work time and your workspace. I mean, it just gives me, honest to goodness, it's like nails on a chalkboard when you see these movie scenes where they pan through an office place and everyone's in their little cubicle and they've got their little 3x3 space and they're on a computer all day long and they've got, a couple of weird pictures taped to the wall. And I think, how do they do that for 8 hours a day?
Well, how do they do it, and how do they do it in environments that are like 6 levels below ground level where the light has never shined?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
It's scary to think.
Yeah.
But then you get the people like Google and you see inside their office space with the slide that goes down to the next story and workspaces that are bright and sunny with plants and you don't have to stay at the same place. You've got a laptop. I always say that to my husband who says, I can't hear. Can everybody be quiet? I said, you are on a mobile phone, which by definition means that it's mobile. So move to a place where you can hear. Don't expect 6 other people to move because you're on the phone. You move.
You move, yeah. Well, people are amazing. I mean, what people can do with limited resources is phenomenal if they have the intention to do it.
Okay, there's that word. Intention is a big word, isn't it?
It's huge.
It's a big word.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to take our next break. And when we come back, that's what we're going to talk about. Intention.
Great.
Okay, you're listening to Fresh Waves. We've got Bill Cotric in the station this morning from Changing Dimensions, and we're going to change dimensions right after this. Stay tuned.